Hey there, welcome to the Uplift. We got a great show for you coming up, a great cast of characters as well. Let's roll the intro. Take a look at these. Children's book author Mo Willems. He's at Coney Island. I know the Pigeon's going to get on the roller coaster, but will he? We'll tell you. Also, 2 married veterans hoping to provide some peace to other vets and first responders. What unique program did they come up with? We will explain. It involves a fishing rod. And why are these coffee shop employees jumping for joy? Look at that. So we're going to show you the meaning behind that viral celebration. Plus, it is not a museum, it's a home. Take a trip to a quaint house in the UK dedicated to everything royals and meet the 78-year-old woman behind it, also inside of it. And of course, our other heartwarming videos, the ones you gotta see, including a touching tribute to the Queen. You're watching, can you feel it? The Uplift. Hey there, I'm Tony DeCopel. Welcome to The Uplift. We are the show that lifts you up for at least the next 30 minutes. You and me as well. This gray suit will be yellow by the end of the day. That's my bet anyway. We're going to begin with the meaning behind a viral video you may have already caught. What is the cause of that celebration you're looking at? And that is a big celebration. Jumping for joy. Someone come along and tell me. How about CBS Boston's Julie McDonald? She's got the answer.
At Biddy and Beau's in Melrose, they're busting out their best moves to celebrate.
Literally so happy. It felt like a holiday for me. A little bit emotional, but I was okay.
This week marks their first anniversary. The coffee shop proudly employs local men and women who live with intellectual disabilities. The drinks are delicious.
Hot coffee.
And the very best stuff isn't even on the menu.
I get to come in with a smiling face and have a good attitude every single day.
The staff of more than 30 Sweet Smiles is growing. What's your name?
Joe.
Joe? How old are you?
18.
New hire Joe Sullivan just earned his first paycheck. That joyful jumping up and down viewed more than 3.3 million times on social media. If it makes you smile, imagine what it does for Joe's champions.
I say it every time I leave here. I leave with a full heart.
Next order. The company's mission of inclusion and acceptance, an answered prayer for the families and friends who cherish these bright workers.
A lot of times I say, you might not be able to change the whole world, but, we can change our world, right? And so that's what he's doing, one coffee at a time.
All right. Find those hearts.
And word on the street is the coffee's not bad either, Julie. Very sweet story. We're going to move on to our next, however. When Queen Elizabeth II died, admirers, of course, flocked to London landmarks like Buckingham Palace and Westminster Hall to pay their respects. That was the idea. But one woman didn't have to leave her home to honor the Queen. In fact, she's been dedicated to the royal family for 4 decades already, and the Queen lives on in her heart, of course, but also all around her in her home. Natasha Larno visited her house to get an inside peek.
In the suburbs of London, there stands a small home unlike any other, a sort of cottage turned shrine to Queen Elizabeth II. It belongs to 78-year-old Margaret Tyler, a royal superfan you could call her, who has turned her home in the middle of a quiet, unsuspecting street into a very loud declaration of love for her beloved monarch.
Oh, I adored her. I've met her 4 times altogether. She's just so charming, and when she smiles, that smile is like the sun coming out. Honestly, it's really lovely.
She began collecting royal memorabilia 40 years ago and has now amassed more than 13,000 objects.
I mean, I go to the royal shop down in London quite often, and they had a box of photographs of the Queen, 30 in a box. I thought, lovely. I know what I'm going to do with those. I'm going to frame them. So I wanted all the frames the same. So then I had to go racing around the shop. So I was taking all the... so I did 30. Oh.
Between the cups, the paintings, the figurines, you have to navigate around the home carefully, lest something special fall.
But I love that picture. I mean, that is him, isn't it? It really is him. That's our future king one day.
Each member of the royal family has their own dedicated area inside the house.
I love the royal children. I think they're great. When they're all out together, you know, the three children and their parents, they look magical, honestly.
There's even an entire room dedicated to Princess Diana.
That's a nice one of her, isn't it? But round here is her life, and I think that's lovely. Wasn't she beautiful? I met her once, just once, and she's more stunning than what she looked in newspapers and that, you know what I mean?
When did you build this Diana room?
Oh, it was when she died. It was terrible. I was in a terrible state. It took me a long time to get over it.
All in all, the entire first floor is reserved for royal memorabilia. Margaret and her husband even vacated what was once their master bedroom to make room for more.
It felt really big. It doesn't feel big anymore. We've got so much stuff in here.
When news of the Queen's failing health broke before her passing, Margaret said she went to bed each night dreading something would happen to her.
When they said she died, I honestly couldn't believe it. I was shattered. I mean, 2 days before, our new Prime Minister had been with her and the photographs were in the paper. I thought she looked pretty good. When I wake up in the morning, I think, was that some horrible dream or did it really happen? You know what I mean? I can't really come to terms with it, I think.
Outside the walls of Margaret's cottage, an era may have ended. But inside, the Queen's legacy is well preserved.
It all changed. It absolutely all changed. And we don't really know what sort of king he's going to be, do we? Not really. And I do wonder if he's accepted that she's died, but obviously he has to, doesn't he? Yeah, he has to.
But the monarchy lives forever. So do those artifacts. It's a very sweet piece. Coming up, another moving tribute to the Queen, plus our other heartwarming videos, the ones you just gotta see. Also, how a married couple came up with, you guessed it, it's fishing, to help fellow veterans. Stick around, you're watching The Uplift. That is the national anthem, the British one, of course, sung by mourners who came together outside Buckingham Palace to honor Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen's death was a moment of great emotion for her subjects, of course, and in moments of great emotion, people often look to signs as a way to heal. Give me a sign, they say. They want to know that everything's going to be all right. How about this for a sign? A rainbow appeared over Windsor Castle just as the Union flag was lowered on the day she died. And how about this? A double rainbow filled the sky over Buckingham Palace on the same day. There's your sign, people. All right, we are going to pivot to our heartwarming videos, the ones you just gotta see, and we're gonna begin with this one. Take a look at these little dirt bikers trying to fist bump before a race. You'll get it. Come on. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. Oh, no, me. No, you go. Your turn. Oh, no, cut. Oh, there we go. They got it. That is 3-year-old Axel and 4-year-old Jameson. They are competitors there with very cool helmets. They are also best friends, and ultimately, they did bump fists. It's the effort that counts. This next video shows 1-year-old twins who were not ready, I'm not ready either, to see Halloween decorations. Just dead people with red eyes playing the banjo. What's to see? Okay. I don't know why we put those on our houses, but we do. You'll understand one day, and I will as well, I hope. To our next story, when Air Force recruits complete basic training, they participate in a very sweet and moving ritual known as the Tapout. It's at the end of graduation. They don't leave until a family member comes and taps them on the shoulder or gives them a hug. It's very emotional. It's an emotional moment for a lot of people, and in particular for Airman Andrew Garcia.
You ready? There he is. There he is.
Oh my God. Oh God. Hey, Mom.
Garcia's parents and little sister Avery, that's who's running up there to him, they attended his graduation. They knew how much Avery missed her brother, so they chose her to run up to him after the ceremony and give him that hug, that tap out. What a sweet tradition and a great accomplishment as well. Basic training completed. All right, coming up, feel like a kid again on a day to the Coney Island boardwalk with children's book author Mo Willems. And meet a man who almost became the first African-American astronaut for NASA. What he's doing now will amaze you. 5 decades later, it is just as impactful, if not more. We have many goals here at the Uplift. One of them is a simple one, to put a smile on your face. Another is to, at times, make you feel like a kid again. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to send you to an amusement park to talk about books for children with author of some very good ones, Mo Willems. And here's another big kid, Jamie Wax.
What do you think? Should we ride it? Are you gonna come on with me?
As we learned recently in Coney Island,
Let me think about this. Gotta give me a moment. Okay.
author Mo Willems isn't a fan of roller coasters. But one of his characters is. A character so beloved, the Brooklyn Cyclones recently dedicated a game night to the Pigeon. No, not that pigeon. This one. It was a celebration of Mo Willems' latest book, The Pigeon Will Ride the Roller Coaster.
Every single type of animal or character has been covered in children's storytelling.
True. Right.
How did you land on a pigeon?
Well, the pigeon is the only character that came fully formed. I moved to Oxford, England for a month or so to write the Great American Picture Book. I sat there and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote important, meaningful stories, and this pigeon popped up in my notebook saying, "Don't write about this, it's terrible, write about me, I'm awesome." So I wrote this idea about a kid trying to stop the pigeon from driving the bus. And the pigeon said, "What do you need this kid for? I don't need a co-star. Let me star."
And star he has. Since his debut in Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus nearly 2 decades ago, the excitable bird has found his way into the pages of Willems' 67 children's books, alongside much-loved characters like Knuffle Bunny, the elephant Gerald, and his friend Piggy.
All your books feel deeply personal and deeply in the moment you create them, but I wonder how much the pigeon is really you.
I aspire to pigginess, am approaching Geraldness, and I hope I have left the pigeon behind.
Okay, that might be my favorite Mo Willems quote ever.
I can see it now in all of its roller coastery glory.
What I really loved is in the evolution of the pigeon books, they became less about telling all the rest of us what to do with the pigeon and telling the pigeon, you have to do something you don't want to do. Like, pigeon has to go to school.
That's right.
Pigeon will ride that roller coaster right behind you.
Every pigeon book is that. Wants, needs, has to, will, can't. It's all of these sort of imposed verbs on his life. Like, everything becomes a theme on that. I will need a ticket, but I will have a ticket.
And from the first time I discovered you as a children's author, it feels as though you're getting more and more direct and economical in your storytelling.
My job, I feel very strongly, is to do 49% of the work. I'm creating the scaffolding for the kids and the adults to put in the performance, to put in the meaning, to put in the ideas. My job is to write incomprehensible books for illiterates, right?
You're speaking my language.
So, because then you bring something in. I'm in a dialogue. What I want for the grown-ups is to have a shamectomy. I actually want you to be silly, because you're my orchestra, particularly with the littles. You are the wall between the story and them, because they can't read yet. Having children, one of the blessings is it reminds you that you can be ridiculous.
Bus driving, bus driver.
And while Willems' blend of ridiculous yet profound storytelling now extends well beyond the page, the message remains the same.
True story.
Why do you think you've been so successful at translating your work to visual mediums?
I respect the audience, and I gravitate to projects that terrify me. Because that's the excitement of it.
Let me drive the bus!
I think some people want their books to be read. I want my books to be sparks. Does that make you perform? Does that make you sing? Does it make you draw? A book is not meant to be read. It's meant to be read 1 billion times. And it's meant to create a new environment for kids and grown-ups to create.
He says he does 49% of the work. We do 51% of the work. That's 100% of a good time, though. It's working. I know that. Thank you, Jamie Wax. We do move on, though, to our next story about married veterans who found a way to cope with stress and are now sharing it with others who may have PTSD. CBS Minnesota's Jennifer Mayerly has our story.
This is a place where the Puentes can let go of the stress and allow nature to bring peace.
Just listening to the sounds, the birds, the water, it's just healing. This is one of my go-to quiet spots.
It's especially true for Richard, who deployed twice to Iraq, lost a brother to suicide, and is a St. Paul, Minnesota police officer.
Dealing with being away and things of the war, coming home and losing my brother, it was pretty hard on me. Took me about 10 years to get the help I needed, but fishing and being outdoors was kind of my way to cope with the stress.
Lindsay served in the Army for 8 years and now works as a mental health counselor. Together, they created Cast and Hook Fishing.
We help people feel that inner peace, even if it's for a minute, even if it's for an hour.
They and other anglers volunteer their time to take first responders and veterans struggling with mental health issues fishing.
Yeah, the need has been there. It's just the stigma that comes with it.
Retired Army Colonel Doug Stubbe was the first to reach out. He served 38 years with tours in Bosnia and Iraq.
Felt like I knew Rick right from the beginning. Felt like I've known him forever. I can see him. They're scooting.
For Doug, getting out to fish brings a sense of balance into his life.
When my inner self seems out of whack, this is the place I know where to go.
He says it helps to cast a line with someone who understands it.
What do you got? Spinner. So Rick and I can sit here and fish. He can tell from a look, maybe the way I'm casting.
The experience is as meaningful for Richard.
We don't ask the questions, but it's pretty cool that they trust us enough to let us know what they've been through.
Whether they're casting for fish or away from the water, they connect.
What we call in the service battle buddies, they're who I can call up and just say, hey, not feeling good today.
They've learned it matters.
That's exactly why we're doing this, so people don't have to feel so alone in their struggles.
You are not alone, just another way to say it. Coming up, before he used his art to honor notable figures in Black history, he had hopes of making history of his own as the first African-American astronaut candidate. We'll have more of his remarkable story after the break. Welcome back to the Uplift. We are now going to introduce you, as promised, to the first African-American astronaut candidate, known as the Kennedy Boy. Where is he now? Well, Drika Duncan has that story exactly.
I sit down at the table over there to get it ready for casting.
Inside 88-year-old Ed Dwight's art studio in Denver, Colorado, is a collection of stories told through the sculptures he creates.
This is one of the Buffalo Soldiers. He was Corporal Clinton Greaves, and he was one of the 18 Medal of Honor winners during the Indian fighting days.
But before Dwight became an artist dedicated to memorializing notable figures in Black history, he had hopes of making history of his own in space.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When President John F. Kennedy decided to take one step for man, he also made plans to send the first Black astronaut to the moon and thought Ed Dwight was a star.
When I got this letter, November the 4th, 1961, offering me this opportunity to be the first Negro astronaut, I thought these dudes were crazy. Why me? I mean, what in the world is this all about? You know, and I said no. I mean, my first reaction to it was, that's the nuttiest thing I ever heard.
At the time, Dwight was a 27-year-old Air Force pilot who had to be convinced to take the leap.
I consulted my mother, and my mother's telling me about all this stuff that I could do as a symbol, and think of you know, all the kids, you'll get excited.
Your mother tells you this is bigger than you. This is you representing African Americans.
Exactly.
This is definitely a sign of progress for the Negro in the country.
As the first African American astronaut candidate, Dwight was considered a source of pride within the Black community. He toured the country promoting his newfound journey, but when he returned to the space program, he faced a new frontier of opposition.
So all these white folks that I'm dealing with, I mean, my peers and the leadership was just horrified at the idea and the president appointing me to this position.
You were known as the Kennedy boy.
Yeah, I was the Kennedy boy.
After 4 years of intense training, NASA decided Dwight did not have what it took to be an astronaut. The man, dubbed Kennedy's boy, was quickly brought down to earth.
Why aren't you an astronaut now?
Well, I couldn't begin to tell you.
Astronaut dreams dashed, Dwight left the Air Force in 1966. He worked at IBM and started several businesses, including a construction company.
Every evening I would go to each one of my sites, and all the copper and the steel and pieces of stuff that were left over, and I'd throw them in the back of my Mercedes, and I'd go home, and then I had to teach myself how to weld.
One person who took note was his friend and Colorado's first Black lieutenant governor, George Brown, who saw Dwight's work and encouraged him to pursue it seriously.
George had been to one of my parties and saw this art in my house, and they wanted to do a sculpture of me for the Capitol. And I said, well, that's not what I do. And he says, you're going to become one of the famous sculptors in the United States of America when I get through with you. And I laughed at him. I said, George, you are full of stuff.
Since then, Dwight has created nearly 20,000 gallery pieces and more than 130 memorials across the country, honoring those hidden figures of Black history.
I had never sculpted before. I was 45 years old like this.
Mm-hmm. He says his favorite memorial is the one he did at the Texas State Capitol.
200 images of people on that Texas memorial, and they all have different personalities, and they all have different dreams, and I wanted to put that in their faces.
A long way from space, these sculptures give us a better sense of the world in which we live.
Had you been the first Black astronaut into space?
You know, I probably would have done the same thing that Black guys did go into space. You know, and that became the highlight of their life experience. Because I wouldn't have done anything, I probably wouldn't have done anything else.
Does it still bother you today that you were not the first?
That didn't bother me. It was a great opportunity, and all the little parts and pieces of everything you see in the studio and all those buildings down there is a manifestation of what I learned in the years that I was in that program.
What do you want your legacy to be?
You know, the legacy I want is that I gave a damn. And that's it.
A legacy sculpted by the history he's determined to preserve.
That is a great piece from Jericka Duncan, and that is a great show, I'm going to say, because I know it brightened your day. I know it lifted you up, because it did for me. And if it didn't for some reason, you know what I always say, reruns are free. I'm going to go find some good news. See you again.